Welcome to this quick introduction to how to use Google Calendar. It has some really neat features, and I think you'll enjoy using it. So let's dive in. The first section will be the easiest, but probably the most important, just how you can get to your Google Calendar. And I have 3 different ways that I like to get to Google Calendar. I'll show them all to you, and then you can decide which one works best for you. The first step will be to open your Google Chrome browser, and this is the page that I'm met with when I open mine. Hey, just a fun fact, if you'd like to change the color of yours, because by default it's white, down here in the lower right hand corner there are fun ways where you can customize Chrome and you can change the color and the theme and make it look all pretty. So mine is this burgundy color. This is what I'm met with every time I open a new tab in Chrome. To get to Google Calendar, my preferred way is that I go to this thing up in the upper right hand corner that I call the waffle because it looks like a waffle. And so if I click on that, Google Calendar is an app that's right there. By the way, this is how you'll get to all of your apps, and there are more Google apps listed below, but Google Calendar will always sort of be on this front page. So if I click there, it opens my Google Calendar. The second way to get to Google Calendar would be, again, from a new tab, would be to type in calendar.google.com, and that will also open your calendar, calendar.google.com. So once you've found your way to your calendar, you may want to bookmark it and keep it right at the top. So all of these things that I have up here are my current bookmarks. And actually, I have more. Do you see this double arrow over here? That just means I've got more bookmarks, overflow bookmarks that I've dropped down below. So if I click this star right here, it will say this page has now been saved to the bookmarks bar. But I don't see it, and that's because I have so many it went to my overflow. That's okay. If I click on these 2 arrows and I come down to find it, there's the little icon. I know it's always going to be the last one. I can drag it up. Do you see this white line that's moving along as I move my cursor? So let's say I want to drag it right here, and I can leave it right here. So I just took it from the bottom of that overflow parking lot up here to somewhere where I'll be able to see and access it every day, which I might want to do. A calendar is pretty important. One more pro tip while I've got you right here. If you right click on that and go to the word edit, you'll see that it's currently called Washington Township Public Schools Calendar. I don't want it to be called all of that. I want it to be something much shorter and easier for me to find. So I'm just going to call it calendar or even cal, and I'll click save. And now it takes up less space up here, and I generally do this to save space on my bookmark bar. So now it's just called calendar. It's at my bookmarks bar. Every time I open a new tab, it will always be there, and I can very quickly get to my Google Calendar. So that's 3 ways to get to it. You've got the waffle, you've got the bookmarking it, and you've got opening a new tab and typing in calendar.google.com. If you've used any internet calendar program before, this is going to look very familiar. If you're not familiar with Google, it probably looks similar to something that you've used before. Just a few things I'd like to point out, just navigationally. Across the top will always show you the month that you're on. It will show you the current week, unless you change that. And sometimes I do like to change it. So by default, mine is on week, but I can change that if I had very, very busy days to where it would show a daily calendar, jam-packed with appointments, or I could look at a monthly view, and I often like to switch and look at the monthly view too so I can get a big picture. And you have lots of options here for ways that you can change that. If you'd like it to show weekends or not show weekends, you can turn that off. So now you're just looking at a work week, and maybe that's what you prefer. So the different views are pretty nice in Google Calendar. Okay, so let's set up a meeting. I'll do it so let's create a meeting. I will use the create button for this because I want to show you that when you click on this, it gives you all kinds of options. We're keeping it basic today, so we're just going to create an event. I'm going to have a meeting. So I'll click that and it opens up a box for me. Now, this is a simple compose box. It's the most basics that it gives you. So if I'm going to call this meeting, it's a meeting. I could do that. I could certainly see when it's going to be, and I could click save, but this is just my preferred working way. I always click more options, and it gives me the big box. And this is where I can do all the things. It just gives me more options on this page. So I suggest this. When you're setting up a meeting, first you'll name it, and then you'll select the date for it. Well, mine's going to be on Friday, January 26th. And I want my meeting to be at, let's say, 9 o'clock in the morning. So here we are at 9, and by default it'll set an hour, but let's say I want that to go until 11 in the morning. Okay, then it's set. If it's an all-day meeting, let's say I'm going to be out at a conference, or I've got some sort of an all-day event, I can click all day, and it will just change that to January 26th. The whole day will be blocked out on your calendar, and then it'll show that you don't have any availability then. All right, but I'll put it back to a 2-hour meeting. Let's say that this was a meeting that happened every Friday. Well, if I click on the does not repeat, you'll see that I have lots of options to repeat that meeting. So I can say, yep, this happens every day from 9 to 11, or just on Fridays, or maybe on the 4th Friday of every month. And there are lots of options. You can even get more granular and customize it. But I'll just say this is not a recurring meeting. This is something that's only going to happen once on January 26th for 2 hours in the morning. Now, let's scroll down and take a look at some of the other options that Gmail gives us. So on event details, I'm going to hop over this for a second. I'll come back. I can add a location, not necessary. If this is, if I know that I'm going to be meeting at the BOE office, I can type that in. It tries to find suggestions from maps, but you don't need to honor those. You can just click that and it will say that. If I was going to be at Chestnut Ridge, for the day, room 104, then I could put that in and it'll honor that. So it doesn't have to be a suggested one that comes up on maps. You can put that in if you like. Now, let's add some guests. On the right, I love that Gmail calls them guests, so it's your invitees to your meeting. And over here, I'm just going to add a few of my favorite guests, some of my colleagues here. And now I've got my EdTech team, and they're all invited as guests to my meeting. Down below, it does let me select some permissions. Would I allow any of my guests to modify this event? By default, it's off, because by default, we don't usually want people to be able to modify our calendar meetings. Are they allowed to invite other people? Like if I had forgotten somebody, could they invite others? And also, can they see the guest list? And you can turn this on or off. Maybe you don't want somebody to see who else is coming to this meeting until they get there. So you can always hide that if you'd like. It's on by default. Okay. Let's pop back over here. Notifications by default. Everybody who is invited, so everybody on this list, will get a notification 10 minutes before this meeting by a little ding sound on their computer. So their computer would have to be on and open with the sound open, and they'll get that little ding, and it says, oh, you've got, and a little pop-up happens that says you've got a meeting in 10 minutes. You can do something else with this, though, that is kind of clever, and maybe it would be your preferred way. If you want to change that notification or add a notification, right here there's a drop down. And so instead of just hearing that little ding, you could choose that everybody's going to get an email. And maybe 10 minutes isn't enough. Maybe you want it to be 2 days. Right? 2 days beforehand, everybody will get an email reminding them of this. Maybe you wanted them to get both. So they're going to get an email 2 days beforehand, and then they're going to get a notification ding sound 10 minutes beforehand. You can add as many notifications as you like. Okay, by default, this is going to my personal calendar. We'll talk about other calendars that you can subscribe to later, but this is my personal calendar. I have mine set to red. Pick your favorite color. Mine's just going to be red for this. All right, by default, my calendar is going to show that during that time that I've set that meeting, I'm busy. If it was something like, instead of an actual meeting, maybe I just put on here grade papers, and I wanted to be able to do that from, for 2 luxury hours in the morning, and I'm not really busy. If somebody needed me, I could still meet with them, or I could still take a phone call or something. I could change this to free. But by default, it's always going to be on busy. It assumes if you're setting up a meeting that you've got something going on. All right, and then down below, we can type a description. So if I was going to have a meeting with this bunch of people, I can say, let's talk about ed tech stuff. Right? And anything that you want to put in there. I love this section for dropping in links. You see, you can drop a hyperlink. So I could say, look at this website or this document first, and I could hyperlink it in there, which is a really nice option. You can put all different kinds of information down in this box. You can even add an attachment. So if you have a PDF or something you'd like to add, that can go there before you send it off. But one of the cool and new things about Google Calendar that we didn't have in our previous email tenant is to create meeting notes. If I click that, it just made, I don't know if you can see this little icon here, that's Google Docs. So as soon as I click that, it made a Google Doc and it lives in my Google Drive. It's there already, automatically created. And everybody who I've invited to this meeting has access to this template. And it is a template created by Google. It's a default kind of a thing. And as soon as I click that, everybody's got an access to this Google Doc, shared access, for taking notes for the meeting. And they're going to be able to add to that in live time before, during, and after the meeting. So it's a really nice option that if you have a bunch of people coming, you have a shared digital piece of paper where everybody can collaborate. That's a great Google Calendar feature. A couple other great Google Calendar features. And my favorite, probably everybody's favorite, is right up here, and it's called Join with Google Meet. So I'm going to back out of this one and come back in and show you what this looks like when you're first setting up a meeting. Let me get out of meeting. I'll discard that. Okay. I'll go back to Friday. Let's say Friday at noon now. Okay. Friday at noon, I'm going to create a meeting. I'm going to add those same guests. Well, I'll just add Mike this time. And this one's called Hi There Meeting. Okay, and it's going to be from 12 to 1. I want this to be a virtual meeting. I want to meet with my buddy Mike, and we're going to talk about Hi There. So I can add Join with Google Meet, which is Google's video conferencing system, and it's built right in. This is a huge time saver for us because we no longer will need WebEx. You don't have to go out to WebEx, open another tab, grab that URL, come in, copy, paste it back in here, send that link. It is built in. It's the ultimate time saver, and Google Meet is really, really quite nice. So I'd like to show that to you, but before I do, let me just show you a couple things about it. When I clicked add to a Google Meet meeting, it turned into Join with Google Meet, and it automatically generated a URL or a web address. That's great for you to know because it will live here in your calendar, and if you needed to go back and get that and send it to somebody else, I want Bobby to join us too, you can just grab this URL and send that off. You could also add somebody as a guest. Every guest that you add will get that URL, and they can click to join right from their own Google Calendar and their email invite that they'll get. So great thing. Let's take a look at Google Meet. Google Meet is Google's video conferencing platform. So similar to a WebEx or a Teams meeting or a Zoom, Google Meet has it built right into their calendar function. And I'm going to show you how to do that, how to set that up, and why it's just really awesome. All right, let's take a look at Google Meet. So here I've recreated my Hi There meeting. I only have myself so far. I'm going to add, actually this time I'm going to add my other Gmail address so that I don't bother Mike with meaningless invitations. So here I've added mrskrasnowski@gmail.com. That's my other email address, my personal email address. Right here, I can mark as optional. So this may not be a mandatory invitee, so I can make that optional. And you'll see that when I click on it, the little people head there says, it kind of turns clear and it says, mark required instead. So if they're required to come, I can click that. Most of the time, I just don't even check it at all. But if you wanted to have 10 people coming and 2 optional people, you could make it optional and they'll get that notification that it's not mandatory that they come. All right, now let's come over back to Google Meet. Here's that Google Meet button, join with Google Meet. And as soon as I added a Google Meet meeting to this, it added video conferencing capability to this meeting. So I'm not running across town. I have no location in here. This is going to be a video meeting, similar to how you did WebEx or Teams or Zoom, any of those. Now it's built right into Google Calendar. So if I click join with Google Meet when it's time, I will be able to join this meeting. But before I do that, let me just save this meeting. Okay, it's all set up, it's saved. I've got my notes down here. I've got a little description down here. The time is right, the guests are right. I will save this. And it lets me know that it's going to send invitation emails to my calendar guests. Okay, go ahead and do that. Somebody's outside the organization. That's okay, invite everybody. All right, and create and share those meeting notes. So here we are. Here's my Hi There meeting. It now appears on my calendar for Friday at 12 noon. And when the time comes and I go to click on that, I'll open it. And here is my Join with Google Meet button. This is for me on my end. This means I can join this meeting. All I have to do is click right here. I can also open my notes. And here are the notes that I showed you. It was default template created, all right? And everybody I've invited has shared access to this. It has the date, attendees, notes, and action items. That's the default template for this. So I have access to that. All of my invitees, which is only myself, also have access to that. And up here is our Google Meet. So I'm going to click Join with Google Meet, and it opens the video conferencing software. So when the meeting starts to open up, you'll come to this screen first. Don't worry, you're not in the meeting yet. This is just a preview screen, so you can fix your hair, take a look at your settings and things, which are down below. So down here, you'll see that you've got some options for the microphone and the camera and things like that. By default, they're going to be okay. They're going to be set the right way that you need them. But if you need to check them now, you know where they are. One of the cool things that everybody loves about Google Meet is this little magic button down here, and it's just cool backgrounds. So I can change my background to all kinds of great things. They have so many options in Google Meet. You can even add your own if you'd like. But there's just a lot of fun to be had with crazy backgrounds like that little guy right there. So if I set that as my background, when I join the meeting, that'll be there. And then when you're ready to join, you can click Join Now. And you're in your meeting and waiting for other people to come. And so Google Meet is really awesome. It's got many of the same controls that we had with other programs like Teams meetings or GoToWebinar or WebEx or any of the other Zoom that you've used. There's lots of cool tools down here that you can use. You can share your screen and present, that you can see other attendees who are in the meeting right here. There's a chat box. This is the one that I always show everybody from the start because this is what you'll need to be able to see and read each other's comments or drop links to each other. That's just right there. And there are some other cool features. Once we get more into Google and you start using it, we can move into those. But wanted to show you how to set up a Google Meet meeting from Google Calendar. And it's just so easy because we don't have to go out and get a WebEx link anymore. It's built right in. All right, the last part, replying to a calendar invitation. So I wanted to show you what it looks like when you're a recipient of a calendar invitation and what it looks like on your calendar. So you remember in the last segment, I sent a calendar invite to my personal Gmail account. So we're going to hop over there right now and take a look at what it looks like from that end. First of all, in my email, I got an invitation to this meeting, and it even comes with the notes. Remember, we set up that meeting notes. So if I click on this to open, this is what it looks like on my end. So I've received this invitation, and here is my join. It's right there in the email, in the calendar invite, and it's polite when you get one of these to reply, yes, I will be going, maybe I'm not sure, or no, I'm not able to make that meeting. So once you get this, you want to reply. And I'll show you a little neat thing about that. Hang on, let me just hop over to my calendar for a moment. So I'll go to the waffle. I'm going to go to my calendar. And this is my personal account up here. I can see that I've got a meeting, but do you see how it's white? It's sort of light on there. That's because it's a proposed meeting, but I have not yet accepted it. So let me pop back to my email. Just went back to my old tab. And in my email, let's accept that meeting. So here I have accepted that meeting. So now when I go back to my calendar, so I'll go to the waffle. I could go to the waffle to get to my calendar, or actually I can go to this little button right here too, and then pop it out. So now notice it's not white anymore. Now it's a confirmed meeting, so it shows up in color on there, and my personal color for this one is yellow. That's why it's showing up yellow. So I can also get to this meeting and join the meeting from my Google Calendar, which is what I usually do. This is my just preferred work way. And again, there's my Join with Google Meet button, and here is my Notes button. So I can click into that and hop into those shared notes. And that's just what it looks like on the recipient's end. Again, best practice, go ahead and reply yes to any invitation you get so that it shows up, and the person who sent the email will see that yes, you've responded and that yes, you'll be attending. All right, those are just some best practices about using Google Calendar, and we hope you enjoyed this mini course.